Well, it looks like I was wrong in the last episode because we are not staying in the DLCs just yet. There is, of course, one other large base game area I have neglected: Blackreach. Yes, today in our exploration of the small and overlooked details in Skyrim, we travel deep below the ground to the Dwarven expanse of Blackreach. This ancient cavern is ripe with secrets and mysteries to uncover. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get started. Our first find is a very interesting one. We come across what is clearly some kind of gladiatorial arena, even complete with a viewing area and even what appears to be some kind of VIP seating. On the table is a book detailing events that occur around 2000 years after the disappearance of the Dwemer, meaning this had to have been placed here by someone else, and given the blood we see in the center of the arena, it does seem like one way or another they made use of the facilities here. We even have a spinning blade for extra excitement. But the reason this is so strange is that there is no recorded evidence of the Dwemer ever involving themselves in these kind of barbaric sports. It's possible this was built to research the barbarism of their neighbor races, but throwing themselves needlessly into death sounds very illogical for such a logic-oriented race. If anything was done here, I would assume it was done to the Falmer. We know already the Dwemer had no reservations about using them as subjects in horrific experiments, but unfortunately it seems doubtful that we will ever get a true answer here. Continuing our look into Dwarven culture, our next find takes us up towards the cavern ceiling. Here we find what can only be a market stall. Once we've managed to lockpick our way inside, we can loot the contents at the back of the room, but opposite to that, we have some kind of exchange area. What's interesting is that this isn't the only Dwemer ruin we find these counters in. This is very physical evidence that the Dwemer had an internal trading system, and likely their own economic system too, which does make a lot of sense. We know from things like the Ethereum Wars that the various clans and colonies of the Dwemer did not always coexist with one another. It is very likely that monetary gain was a driving force for many of the Dwemer. For a society often seen as wise and intelligent beyond all others, it's certainly interesting to see that they too are no strangers to the baser sins of greed. Now, moving on to our third find, we continue our exploration of culture. At this time, it is of the Falmer. The Falmer becoming more intelligent is a concept that is explored a few times in Skyrim, and one I've always found very interesting. It actually reminds me a lot of the Tunnelers from Lonesome Road, which was always my favorite of the New Vegas DLCs, but I digress. We come across a set of huts, each with a Falmer inside. But outside of those huts, we see fish cooking, or perhaps just drying out, over a fire. Further up, we also find pickaxes. This seems to suggest that the Falmer both know how to catch and cook fish as well as mine for ore. This information isn't exclusive to Blackreach, of course, but what I find interesting about it is that it seems sort of unnecessary here. They have an entire Dwemer fortress to live in. Why choose to stay in huts all the way out here? It's not like they couldn't just catch the fish and then take them back. Are they perhaps trying to get away from a grim reminder of their oppressors? Do they simply prefer their own architecture? Were they banished by the other Falmer? Or have these three simply been relegated to menial tasks? Given that the Falmer have slaves, much like the Dwemer, it would seem strange for that to be the case unless it were some kind of punishment, perhaps. Very strange indeed. But back to the Dwemer now. At the highest point of the central structure, we have a somewhat odd sight. a single chair looking out across the cavernous expanse before it. A Falmer seems to have claimed this area for his own, making it seem almost regal, like a throne. Whether this was once a throne or simply some kind of observation area is a mystery, but if we head around behind the tower we just emerged from, we can find one of the many crimson gnome roots. A strange place for a plant and a strange place for a chair. Just a strange place all around. And finally, we have yet another culture to add to the list. We can stumble across a piece of stone down here. Shocking, I know, but this stone isn't Dwemer. It isn't even Falmer. It's Nordic. A piece of carved Nordic stone rests down here. Why? Was it a gift, a trophy? We do at least know the time period for these two races to have met around here lines up. But why would the Nords have just left a single pillar down here? The only explanation I can think of that has any sort of evidence is that perhaps it was brought down by a giant. We can of course find one down here, and it's the only real link there seems to be between all of these things, but it still doesn't tell us why. This is one hell of a mystery with no real explanation that makes much sense. But that's exactly the kind of thing we're here for. Oh, and a little bonus one. I'm sure everyone knows this one, but I just had to mention it. If you use the Unrelenting Force shout on the big orange glowy orb, the dragon Volthuriol will spawn, his name translating to Dark Overlord Fire. But that is it. Another 5 things you may have missed in Skyrim. I tried to add a little more in the way of lore tidbits to this one, so hopefully you enjoyed. The series has been going on for around 6 months now, so I thought I'd try something a little different. Next time we should be back in the DLCs for the Island of Solstheim. So remember to subscribe for that, and I'll see you then.